Garth Davis, thank you so much for chatting with me about Foe. Phenomenal movie. And as much as it is about artificial intelligence, it's also about relationships. How would you describe the relationship between Hen and Junior?
Yes, thanks for pointing out it's a relationship movie. I think that's super important. I guess what I love about this story is that it focuses on a relationship that is affected over time. So this is not a relationship that has an inciting incident or an affair or something like that. It's actually quite more relatable. So I think we can all relate to it, that over time in a relationship, we can take each other for granted and we kind of lose a sense of our urgency and our identity. And I guess the film really kind of explores that in a kind of an intriguing way.
Is that an inevitability in relationships, you think, that we gradually perhaps don't appreciate them, or is that something we can avoid?
I don't even think it's I don't think it's about not appreciating it. I just think we can very slowly just take things for granted. It's almost like you don't even notice it, but over time it actually builds up and you suddenly find yourself unhappy or somewhere where you don't want to be, and you kind of always reflect back on when it used to be good and when you used to feel alive. And I guess that's a very normal human thing. But in this case, Hen, she really wants to fight for her agency and for happiness, for both of them and also for herself.
How would you describe the character of Hen? Played fantastically by Saoirse Ronan, of course, but how would you describe her?
I love Hen. I mean, I love what she represents. I mean, I think she's a character that she just is one of those people that appreciates how precious our time is and that life is precious. And, in the movie, Junior says, are you afraid of dying? And she says, only of not being ready. And I guess that's the thing, is like, often we don't really reflect on how we've lived our life until it's too late.
Yeah.
And I guess Hen does want to be that person. She really wants to follow her dreams and her destiny, and I really relate to her.
And she also asked Junior a really interesting question. Do you think more about the future or do you think more about the past? Which does your mind sit in more?
That's a good question. I guess I guess I try to be in the present moment as much as possible. But obviously we flip forward and back. But I think true happiness is in a present moment.
And in a future that potentially will be marked by AI, as you've been making this movie alongside of it, so much more has happened in that conversation. What do you think of our humanity needs to be brought forward into that possible future?
I guess this film raises a lot of questions around our relationship with technology and what's coming, but I guess it doesn't matter what comes at us. I think the same problems are always there. And this film, in its simplicity, is just saying, if you take something for granted, you're going to lose it. And we have a responsibility to all things that are living, not just ourselves and our relationships, but the planet. And also, weirdly, these sentient things we're going to start creating.
Yeah.
A lot of people joke about, it'd be really fun to have a fake wife or a fake husband. And, that's funny for a minute. But like, what about that fake husband or that fake wife? How do they feel about it? And, are we really going to bring sentient life into our world to serve us? Like, it just feels strange and so misaligned. So it's kind of a fascinating question.
And it's a really mind-bending thought to go, well, if we are creating them, how much of an intelligence would they really have? How much feeling would they really have? How much relationship would they be able to experience? Do you wrestle with some of those questions as a filmmaker as you're dealing with these kind of subjects?
I do think that things will become sentient, 100%. I fully believe that. And I guess that raises a lot of questions for me around how we're going to exist. I don't know. My personal observation is that in a way we're kind of rejecting the physical body in society. Like, we're becoming more in our minds in virtual realities. And I guess where does the human being sit in all of that? And does it make us happier?
Yeah.
How's it going for you?
Yeah.
Right. Like, how's it going? Is it actually helping us or not? I guess one of the things that could happen is that AI may, in a way, reflect back at us who we are, and maybe we could learn something from that.
Yeah. And in the title of this movie, Foe, is there a particular foe in this movie? Who or what is the bad guy?
I guess the title Foe creates a question in the audience's mind and sends them on the journey of who is the foe, which is a fantastic thing for the audience. And, you should have your own foe, and it's not wrong. I guess for Ian and I, if we had to call it, it would be Junior, because of his stasis and his inability to change. and taking things for granted. And I guess in this relationship, we're seeing people taking each other for granted, and then the greater metaphor sits against the planet. It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and I think that the character of Junior too, he seems to be the thing, at least for Hen, that puts pressure on her in a way that says you can't be anything more than what you are now. That even her human experience is limited.
Yeah, I think Junior over time has just become fearful of living, and he's lost his spontaneity, and he's holding on to his tradition of his family, and all of that is coming at the cost of his wife's happiness and ultimately his own happiness. So everyone does it in their life. They kind of hold these kind of lines in relationships and in their lives at the cost of their true potential.
It's an interesting way to think about it. And even in what you've been bringing up about how much of us influences artificial intelligence, it's a common thought for some that if humans, if we think that humans are made in the image of God, right? Who would you say that artificial intelligence is then going to be made in the image of?
I think it's all the same. I mean, we're creating it, so it has to be part of us. And then I guess there's that mysterious question is can consciousness exist anywhere? Is consciousness God? Is love God? All of those things. Look, I think with this movie, it's all there. You can enter any layer of it depending on who you are as a person. So you can just enjoy it in the top layer, or you can go really deep, and all these themes are there to be brought up and questioned. But, we are starting to play God in many ways by creating these sentient beings. So I guess... I don't have any answers, but it's fascinating to think about.
Now, spoiler alert for everybody watching, spoiler. The end of this movie has a fantastic exchange, I think, between Junior and what I read as being Hen's fake version of who she is. Do you think that our interest in creating the artificial, in the way it seemed like Junior was more able to relate to the artificial, is that something to be said about the way that we almost... maybe we resist the complications, the difficulties of the real? Like a real relationship with somebody is perhaps a little harder than one with a fake person.
Exactly. I mean, that whole ending is really reflects the wife that Junior wants in his mind, and he there is no complexity in many ways. So yes, I mean, I think it's a great reflection of what relationships can end up being, taking each other for granted and assuming a way she should behave, and he calls that love.
Yeah.
And it's not really.
Can you give us an indication where you think Hen ends up as she steps onto the plane and goes off into somewhere?
I guess what I enjoy about seeing her at the end is that she's chosen to live her life, and that is the destination, I guess. But for sure, she's going to chase some music, a lot of culture, nature. She's going to chase all that.
Yeah, and the nature, I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because the earth, the scenery, is a character in its own right in this movie. What did you want it to portray from a visual perspective?
I guess I wanted people to feel it as a living thing in many ways, and also to, we spend all this time trying to live on Mars, and in fact, Earth is going to be Mars.
Right.
In a strange way. So I wanted the Earth to almost feel like a planet. And obviously it's under duress and it's struggling and it's hurting. So I guess there was something kind of fun about almost blurring the lines. It almost feels like the Earth is another planet.
Why is it that in these kind of movies that deal with the future, though, we always seem to end up in these really dry, barren places? Like we're never with robots in the rainforest. It's always going to be a desert. Why is that the sort of case, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely do this version of the movie with it flooding. That would be another version. Blade Runner did that beautifully. So I think extreme weather is really the key. I think for our version, we lent into the drought.
Well, it has been a fantastic privilege to talk to you. Foe is an incredible movie. Let me ask you this as we wrap it up. For those who are going to watch this, and I hope become fans of it in the same way that I did, what would you like them to take away from it that this movie can sort of bring to this larger conversation about relationships in the future?
Look, I guess if you come and watch this movie, hopefully it will awaken that part of yourself that maybe a little bit asleep at the moment, and just remind you of your own beauty and power, and just remind everyone that time is precious and we can make change right now within ourselves, and that's enough, or in the greater context with the planet. So I guess it's a kind of hopeful call to arms in many ways.
Absolutely, Garth. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks.